written communication at the faculty and scientific communication. I like to help researchers to disseminate their research. Um, well, today I'm going to inform you about how you can write a one-pager for a non-academic audience. Because when you write a one-pager for a non-academic audience, it has a totally other structure than something you write for peers. Now, what is the importance to write a one-pager? To start with, it's obligated to write it when you're having a PhD trajectory. But the importance societal is that you, as a scientist, you have a societal role to fulfill to inform non-academic people. It's also useful to have a one pager to explain your research in an accessible way. It's actually a base for an elevator pitch. Everybody knows what an elevator pitch is, yeah? And it can help you to deal with to obtain press goals or to do societal outreach. I'm going to give you some tips and tricks on how to write a one pager. To start with, do not make the article longer than necessary. I would recommend maximum 1.5 pages. The shorter, the better, actually, because then it's more clear for people who don't know a thing about your research. Try to use accessible vocabulary and subtitles. If you work with a video, for example, you have to record a video as well when you submit your PhD. So therefore, I added subtitles. But in your one pager, you must explain specific jargon. Everyone must be able to understand what your research is about. I don't want to underestimate your aunt or your grandma, but they should be able to understand your research. Try to focus on the research when you write your one pager and not the researcher. I know you want to give credits to the people who earn them, but avoid phrases like my investigation shows or professor doctor, my promoter and me concluded that la la la. Try to avoid such things because for people who don't know a thing about your research, it is not relevant. Internally, at the faculty, it's of course relevant, but not for an external audience. But do you, for example, for press goals, want to put your name in the article? Then you can do it very subtle with, for example, adding a quote. But then when you want that the press takes over the text of your one pager as a base for a press release, it's not guaranteed that they will add the quote in the actual article. So it's on your own risk. I added a small example from a PhD student a long while ago, and she succeeded in adding her quote by doing it in this way. Her research was about yeah. Online shopping versus physical shopping. When you write your one pager, it's always handy to add your contact details at the bottom. You will be contacted by a potential journalist if there are additional questions they want to add in their article. Then the structure of a one pager, how must it be built up? You need a catchy title, an introduction, intertitles, then the end with the conclusion, of course, and then contact details. Try to put in the written communication the most important thoughts in bold, but don't overdo it because then it will it won't be useful. Now, I said start with a title, but what is a good title? For a PhD research, I would recommend to use an informative title. So try to integrate who does what in the title, or use a telegram style. It is allowed to do that if it's an accessible way to have a correct, shorter title. Interrogative titles work as well, or a title plus a subtitle, but try to keep it short. Don't make it too long. And also, it's very nice to add word jokes, but not everyone understands them, so it can be, yeah, um, a bit interfering when you do that. So I wouldn't recommend that. Now, how does the introduction look like? Try to answer the 5 Ws. So who, what, where, when, why, if applicable, of course, on your research. An introduction should as well tease and encourage further reading. When I don't know a thing about your research, I want to know, why should I read this one page or further? What can tease people to read your research? Explain as well the core thoughts, or consciously choose not to, because when they already read the core thought in the introduction, people might lose interest. It's a bit a balancing act. But if you have questions, or if you have doubts whether you should already include a core thought or not, you can contact me if you want, or ask your promoter, or there are people enough to help. How does the center of your one pager look like? The middle contains the findings of your research, the most important core findings. You can work with bullet points, but don't overdo it as well, because you may use figures to substantiate the findings, but it can be difficult for journalists when there are too much facts to disseminate the most important ones. So try to make barriers to make sure your message is clear. Then divide the text into paragraphs. Try to use one ID per paragraph. That's actually the main rule. Try as well to get to the point and use intertitles to add a bit structure to your text. Now, what does the end conclusion look like? The end of your one pager should, of course, have the conclusion in mind, or the main conclusions if there are more findings. Write a concluding paragraph that summarizes the main idea, the conclusion of the study. Try to avoid details that don't matter. This is as well the place for call to actions. What is that, a call to action? You can give the reader some advice when your research, for example, is applicable in their day-to-day lives. And you can, at the bottom of your one pager, can you suggest 2 quotes from the article as a highlight. Then you give, for example, the journalist the main quotes, the main ideas. Just they just have to copy paste it, and when they have less work to disseminate quotes from the articles, or to rewrite everything, then the case is bigger that they will use your one pager in a press release or in an article in a magazine or in a paper. Then language tips. I already read a lot of one-pagers of this faculty. And I think this is one of the most important tips I can give you. You have studied here for several years. You are doing your PhD trajectory right now. You're in a very academic context every day, and yeah, academics like to use big words and the jargon as well, but it isn't accessible for a non-academic audience. So try to take a step back and try to formulate your research as easy as possible, and try not to use too big words because it will cause irritation by the reader. When they don't understand it, they will give up to read it. Some concrete language tips. Less is more. Don't write sentences that are too long, just for the clarity. Writing for the press has a different approach than academic writing. Write clear and non-academic. People are annoyed by too much jargon. You don't necessarily have to get to 1.5 pages. The shorter, the better. Write the essence. That's the main thought. Write the essence. Nothing less, nothing more. If the sentence doesn't add value, I would recommend don't write it. As well, avoid superfluous short words, such as so, still, then also, even, namely, course, again, anyway, now. Mostly you can just leave them out. So try to scrap the words that don't add value. Try not to use complicated grammatical constructions. Avoid auxiliary verbs, but that's mostly the case in Dutch. In Dutch, people use a lot of auxiliary verbs, and you can write the active form of the sentence construction or of the verb. So create active sentence constructions, use as well correct language. Try not to make spelling mistakes because it doesn't look professional. Be consistent in your spelling, use or consult good sources when in doubt, ask someone to read it for you and search for the mistakes. And keep as well your target audience in mind so that it's for a non-academic audience. Avoid or be clear with time indications. For example, when you add currently, in my research, I found out this. When you add currently, currently is meaningless because you don't know when your research will be used to do more with it, to have societal impact. So currently doesn't add anything, just leave it out and try to avoid exclamation marks. Now, the one pager in practice. I hope everyone or some of you have a one pager brought with you. Then, well, I give you a minute or then, if you have a one pager with you, to look critical at your own one pager or at your own research with the things you just learned. I will walk around to see if you have any questions, if I can help, if you need advice on something you wrote about your research, and then I would be happy to help. So a short practice, maybe it's more practical if you come forward a bit or did everybody bring a one pager or some people? Yeah, yeah, works for me as well. I'm here to help at the moment, so I give you a minute or 10 to work on it. Is it all right for everyone? Yeah. And if you have questions, just give a sign and I will come around. Okay. If there's someone who hasn't brought anything, you maybe can work a bit together or help each other. The target audience isn't actually your family and your friends, but you should keep in mind your family and friends because they are the perfect test audience to see whether everyone can understand it. So write a one pager with in mind, this can appear in newspapers. Everyone must be able to understand what I'm working about, but leave out yourself, make distance from the research, and think about what do I want to tell everyone? What does everyone want to know about my research? What is useful for everyone you could. Yes, yes, it can. Like I said in the beginning, it can be a base for a press release. When we capture really good one pagers, we can do more with it. And with the central press office, we can push the research to the papers, and the less work the journalist has at a one pager, the more the opportunity that it will be picked up. Okay. Yes. 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 Well, to be honest, I think it's obligated from the faculty board to do it in English. I think I'm not quite sure, but it's actually interesting for you yourself to have it both, because indeed our media are mostly Dutch and speak Dutch, so they will get picked up quicker when you have a Dutch text in mind. Okay. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, an interrogative style is with a question mark, that it ends with a question mark, but it's a bit difficult to give general advice about this because yeah, I feel it a bit when you have the topic in front of you. So it's yeah, you should a bit feel what works with the topic or with your findings. For example, if your research is about virtual reality in In companies, the use of that, you can, for example, use an interrogative title with is VR the future of all companies, for example. Well, it's a bad example maybe, but you understand what I mean. Telegram style is that you leave out um, some words, but that it's still understandable. For example, with the same VR example, uh, VR, is VR the future? Then it's actually a combination of um, the interrogative style and the telegram style, but it's shorter. You leave out a few details, but it's still a title with body that creates tension to read more. Okay. Yes. Um, there is not a lot of difference if you, for example, write for the Standaard de Morgen versus HLN. I think our, um, how do I have to say it, that our topics will be more likely to be picked up about the Morgen Standaard, the date, but make it accessible enough for HLN audience as well, for example. But you don't have to lower your language too much, but make it clear. Just keep a family member or so in mind that they should be able to understand it, and also give your main thoughts in the one pager. But I think you don't have to focus on one medium specifically, but for example, well, I will write a one pager with quality newspapers in mind. And then we'll have to try, it's no exact science, we'll have to try who's going to pick it up. What works a lot is give exclusivity to media partners. It's actually a bit a new way of pushing scientific research, that you, for example, have a good contact with the standard, and that you say, well, I'm going to give you a whole package about my research. It's very interesting for a big audience, and you're the only one I'm going to give it. And then the standard, for example, will be more likely to pick it up. And then there's a bit of snowball effect, and the case is bigger that other media will pick it up again, or that it goes via a Belga press office, or and then more media will pick it up. So I I wouldn't try to write for one newspaper in mind specifically, but for a bit the bigger range. For example, a one pager can be useful as well when you want to give your opinion in a radio program about your research. It can be the basis you rely on. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, actually the one pager is a good basis to start from. Yes. Hmm. Hmm. You're not obliged to do it, but I would recommend to do it because well, I can help you. I can give you tips. I can do, for example, if you're doing a radio program, I can do a dry run with you and try to ask some questions that you are better prepared. but it's not obliged to inform me. But when you appear in the media, I can give more attention to it afterwards when I know, of course. So I would recommend to do it, but it's not obliged. Yes. More the results that you found, because um, people don't want to read things they already know. They want to know new things. So the theory actually is a bit, yeah, uh, the yeah, yes, it already exists. So the new findings, I would focus on the new findings. Yes, yes, of course. Of course, yeah, depending on your topic. Um, of course, you are so deep in your research that it's a bit difficult to take distance from it, but try to think what will people be interesting, or what will people find interesting, or what will they yeah, can I give them some advice where they actually can do something with, or I would try to start from that thought. Okay. Of course, it doesn't apply any research. It's a bit depending on your topic. Yes, indeed. Ha. Mm. Yeah, it's a bit abstract, of course, to answer that question, because yeah, I don't know how coherent the content is, but try to find a thread, try to find a line in it, and then yeah, try to select the most important ones or the most new ideas. Then the case is bigger that it will be picked up. Okay. I will give you 2 more minutes, and then if you have questions, or if you want to let me read something, just let me know. Yes, time's up. Is there anyone that I can help or advise or yeah? Mm. Yes, yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, I understand. Yeah. No, no. Lower, yes. Yeah, lower SES you can't use. No, not for a non-academic audience. But it's indeed better to use the divide vulnerable middle class, but it's indeed it has too much a stigma on it. Um, more, yeah. Um, sorry to switch to Dutch right now, but someone with meer koopkracht, minder koopkracht. I'm thinking that way. More means, less means. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Uh, yeah. Yes, yes, I know. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, or people with more opportunities or less opportunities. Yeah, it's a difficult balancing act. Yes. Yes. Okay. I will think about it back in my mind and yeah. Yeah. Okay. Someone else? Yeah. Well, you're obliged to add it to your PhD process, the one pager. They made it mandatory, but in the course of events, you can send it to me if you want some feedback, some actually feedback. I would like to ask, please try to use the tips I gave here and put them in your one pager, but I will be happy to read it and give feedback on it. Yeah. Yes. Well, it depends a bit on the news value. I will talk about it later, but yeah, it depends on the news value of your research because your research can be very, very interesting, but not every journalist will have the same opinion, of course, or your new or your research will not specifically have a very groundbreaking conclusion, for example. So it depends a bit on the news value. Yeah. Okay. Still anyone with questions, or can I go further? Yeah. Okay. The press. Yeah. You have the Ghent University Press Office. You can contact them by mailing to persdienst@ugent.be. It's Tine de Zure and Stefanie Lenoir that do that for the whole Ghent University. Um, but I know they are becoming pickier to um, to send press releases to a broader audience. So they are trying to give some media more exclusivity. I said it before, because the landscape is changing, the media landscape is changing, and some people want information right now. Some journalists want an expert right now, and then it's good that you're on their radar. But sometimes they get a lot of emails and press releases in their mailboxes, and yeah, they try to filter the most the yeah the most interesting ones. So I also have a website that I would like to inform you about, but I have to, yeah, well, um, it's actually at the intranet from Ghent University. It's an English web page as well. So it's for all Ghent University staff, actually, but for most researchers. Um, well, you can try to read the tips they give. For example, communications advice and dissemination. Then when you click through, you have personal advice. Then my name is here for our faculty. But you can try to fill in the contact form as well if you want to go to the central level. Um, then getting started with communications, it can be handy next to the one pager you write to start some communication initiatives yourself. For example, start with a Twitter account, or get yeah try to write posts for on your LinkedIn. Connect with peers in other countries. People in academic audience that do a bit the same research as you do, and try to help each other, share the thoughts online, repost some thoughts, try to support each other. The more visibility you will have on that platforms, the more likely a journalist will be to, for example, retweet you or contact you for a program, a radio program or television program, um, if you want to, of course, because I have the feeling some researchers at the faculty, we have a lot of expertise in the faculty, but sometimes I get phone calls from the press or from the central press office with a question, for example, oh, we really need an expert on SES, for example. And then people in the faculty are pointing to each other. Oh, but he knows more about it. They know more about it. And they all point to each other. And then in the end, the topic goes to KU Leuven. So sometimes you have to take the leap and dare to take the leap. And of course, you don't know everything about your topic, but with a journalist, you can talk, you make yeah you make deals beforehand about what you're going to talk about, what you're not going to talk about. You can ask for corrections, you can ask for example, when it's for recordings in a television studio, to redo it. You have rights, so when they ask you as an expert, you have rights you can rely on. But then here, the getting started with communications page, some people go very far in it. I would advise just do what you feel comfortable with. Don't overdo it as well. Not every researcher has the time or does want to build a website about their research, or have an Instagram account and a TikTok account and a Facebook account and a LinkedIn, or write their own newsletters, or yeah, you know what I mean. So do what you're comfortable with, and it's better to focus on a few than do everything. All as well for your credibility as a researcher. Oh. Yes. Mm. Yes, the press. So you have the reactive way and the proactive way to come into contact with the press. The reactive way is the one who I talked about. So a journalist seeks expertise, and they call around. Oh, we need someone today at 4 p.m. to talk about that subject. So the main goal is to be available and to be wanting to share your knowledge about it. And once they had a good contact with you, they will be more likely to contact you again and to ask you again. For example, Colleen Coppens at the faculty, she's doing great at the moment, I think. And she said yes to a few opportunities, and they ask her again and again. Not everyone has to become a Steenbaert, of course, but he's doing very well, of course, but not everyone should do it to that extent. But try to take small steps, and it will be trial and error. You will once appear in a newspaper, and you will ask to proofread, and then they will maybe say one quote just a little wrong, and then you will have a bad feeling, for example. But don't let let it take your enthusiasm away. Mostly journalists are really correct to spread your information. So the reactive way is a journalist contacts you or contacts us. Then you give the content, then you get some time for preparing your content. But keep in mind, journalists are always dealing with deadlines, and they become shorter and shorter. So you have to react really quickly and give quick feedback. Here at the university, we're not used to that we have to be very quick with giving feedback, but the deadlines of journalists are real, and they will look for someone else when they don't get a reaction very quickly. You always have to the right to add corrections to the thing they wrote about your research. When you are not okay with something they wrote, you can tell it and ask to leave it out. And of course, try to be reachable for follow-up if the journalist has still some questions. They must be able to reach you to add something to the article, or double check something. Then you have the proactive way. Then you have the timing in your own hands. Then it's important. It's a bit a new way of working. I heard from the Central Press Office, give exclusivity. So an exclusive package to one medium. No massive press release, because sometimes people think, oh, we're going to send it to everyone, but then the effect can be less nowadays. Try to have a good content preparation, be available, be accessible. It's actually a bit the same. Now, what is news or what is no news? Of course, your research is very valuable, and it has its right to exist, but not everyone will find it groundbreaking. It's the reality. So try to ask yourself, does it have news value? What is the social importance of my findings? Did I find something new? Can it work for a specific um, sorry, I don't know how to tell it, vakblad, more than a paper? Is there a link with current affairs? For example, the fraud in the European Commission. Someone from the bestuurskunde should jump on it and say, hey, I'm an expert. I know a lot about it. I can explain a lot about that. So actually, when something like that happens, you should jump on it. Is there some event proximity? Can you give exclusivity to someone? And news value can sometimes also depend on the medium or connections you have. For example, if you have a friend who works at the newspaper, yeah, why not try in that way? Or you know someone at VRT or yeah. But communication is no exact science. Sometimes you have to try, just try and make a wild guess. And sometimes a journalist will pick it up, sometimes they don't, and it can have several reasons. When it doesn't get picked up, but it has news value, maybe sometimes it's better to try again after a few months. If you need advice on that one, we can look together what can work or won't work. And then I would like to warn you because there are also some science mob partners, or I don't know how to tell it, but there are some people who interview people. Well, there are some so-called media who like to interview academics and write an article about it, and then they ask 1,000 euros, for example, to appear in the medium, and it's actually it are gangsters. And expertise from Ghent University really doesn't need paid attention. It's valuable what we do in here. We have a lot of expertise in our faculty, so don't say yes to ads or public reportages. They are dodgy and they are expensive. And an example from that is Media Planet. So there are already were a lot of victims in the Ghent University community, but not everyone is aware about it. So therefore, I added it to the presentation. And then I would like you to show you this how-to video I recorded, but maybe everyone already saw it and I can skip it. I don't know. Uh, did you see this video? I recorded it a while ago, and it actually gives an overview about things you can't do, things you can do to have more social impact with your research. Mm.
Hi, I am Lies Vermees. I am the Department Staff Member Communication at the Faculty of Economics and Business Administration. I am responsible for the written communication at the faculty, marketing initiatives, social media. I write a FEP alumni magazine, and last but not least, I try to support researchers to give them that extra push to disseminate their research to the general public in an accessible way. It is normal to be somewhat reluctant to go public with your scientific research or to present yourself as an expert in popular media when your research is not yet in its final phase. Nevertheless, it is important to share your findings so that we as a society become more smarter as a result. To start, every PhD student who submits his or her PhD is required to write a one-pager about his or her research. On this webpage, available in Dutch and English. You can find manuals on how to write a one-pager, and you can send it to me on time, of course, and then I will give feedback. Please keep in mind that everyone who doesn't know a thing about your research topic should be able to understand the content of your one-pager. Of course, any FAP researcher may send me a one-pager, even if it's not in the context of submitting a PhD. I am happy to take a look at it. If I consider your one-pager to have potential to be distributed more widely to the popular press, I will take further steps in consultation with you. Each PhD student who submits his or her PhD should also record an elevator pitch video about his or her research. Here too, I would like to provide content advice if you feel it is necessary. All the manuals and practical information you can find again on the webpage mentioned earlier. To produce the elevator pitch video, you may record it with your own smartphone or use the video clip room at the faculty. But I can especially recommend Ghent University's recording studio. It is a lot more professional than what we have in-house. You can schedule your video recordings by sending an email to opnamestudio@ugent.be. They are happy to help you out. Another option to disclose your research in an accessible way is to write an article in Dutch for the FEP Alumni magazine. This magazine of the Faculty of Economics and Business Administration is sent to all FEP staff members, but also paying members of the Alumni Association FEP Alumni, alumni we have a collaboration with, members of the FEP Advisory Board, members of the Ghent University Board of Governors, alumni who have ever won an award at the faculty's degree ceremonies, PhD alumni, alumni who had a top sport status, alumni with an own company, or with a political career or high profile in the corporate world or public sector. If you want to get coverage in the FEP Alumni magazine, you can contact me. As a scientific researcher, you are somewhat seen as an expert for broader society. With columns or articles in Flemish newspapers, appearances in radio or television programs, or opinions on social media, you often have more reach than you think. Do popular media start to ask you as an expert, or do you want to make yourself known as an expert within a certain field, but are you still a bit hesitant? Do you still have doubts? Then don't hesitate to contact me. I am happy to do a mock-up interview with you or to proofread your contribution. I can make you aware of your rights or give advice on how to deal with the press. In short, I want to make it easier for you to share your FEP research with the broader society. Now, how do you make my job easier? By letting me know what you are working on. Are you doing groundbreaking research, or does the conclusion from your research have news value? Are you working on interdisciplinary research that will benefit a large audience? Let me know. If I don't know it exists, I can't do anything with it. I hope to hear from you very soon.